This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 957, brought to you by Holiday Cheer, and iFanboy listeners just like you.
Where can I get some of that, Joe?
Hello, my name is Conor Kilpatrick, and hey, this is my co-host Josh Flanagan, who's back.
I live.
You live.
I do live. That is an absolute truth. Well, as far as I know.
This is iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 957. It's our last Pick of the Week episode of 2024. It's going to go long, just for you. We're throwing the clock out the window. We added some stuff. We're just going to go as long as we feel like going, or until I get so
I think I have to go
hungry.
back to work after this.
I haven't eaten. Let's just get going. Every week, one of us picks the book they like the best from their stack of comics. And some weeks, that's a great thing to do. And other weeks, not so much. We'll find out what week that was shortly. We called our favorite book the Pick of the Week. We'll talk about that book, the other books of the week, the Patron Pick, listener mail. We'll have some stats for you at the end of this episode. It's going to be fun. And here's your spoiler warning, exercise of caution this week. Josh, you had to pick it before you get into it.
Yeah.
I did find this interesting. Your last pick, do you know what that was?
Yeah, it was X-Men 7.
X-Men number 7. Another fun fact. The very last pick of the week of 2023 was X-Men 29.
Huh.
2 years in a row, the final pick of the year, that was my pick. The final pick of the year was an X-Men comic. Very strange.
Did you also know that the first segment of this show, the first 4 books are exactly the same 4 books from the X-Men 7 show?
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's a weird week.
We talked about the exact same ones. Listen. By the way, you don't ever want to hear listen before we start talking about the pick, because there's going to be grousing. Listen is followed by grousing. That's how it works. I didn't have a ton of books, and, don't get me wrong. I know last week was an onslaught, and I'm going to have to pay for that because I haven't read
25 books.
I know.
And you know what?
I hear you.
We're going to be on break, but in 2 weeks, it's going to be like over 30 books easy. I was looking at the list.
It's time to start thinking about making some changes on the new year for me. Yeah, I definitely shed some this week. I was like, I'm not even enjoying this. Like, I can't remember what it was, or maybe it was last week, whatever. And I read my little stack. I don't know, it's 10, 8, something. It's not a lot of books. I was 1, 2, 3,
I had like
4, 5, 6,
13 or 14.
11, 12, something like that.
Yeah.
And I kind of finished them, and I went, oh no. Like, I had nothing.
It was one of those weeks where there was like a lot of fine middle of the arc stories, like nothing amazing. And there were books I certainly enjoyed, and I liked the pick of the week. And there was a different book I would have made the pick of the week that we're going to talk about later. But it wasn't like a bad like these books sucked. It was like these books were all 3-star books.
Yeah, and they're also all books that we have talked about a lot. So other weeks, we'll get to the book in a second. Other weeks, especially lately, the past few months for sure, is I've been reading like, more than 50% of my books are non-Marvel DC. That's really, and like I think I only had a handful this week.
I had very little this week.
I had 3-4 books, and that's not usual. So here we are, X-Men number 8. You may remember that was the last time I was on the show? It hasn't been a month.
Yeah.
Has it? Or last time I had the pick? Last time you had the pick. That's what it was. Okay, that's different. Yeah. It was, the story, because this is a story. And the story is like, oh, Josh never likes X-Men, but he picks an X-Men book. What's this about? And, the idea was that because of that, and this is true, I normally don't get into X-Men books, but the last issue in this series in general has been like, these are many of the things I like about X-Men at the same time without very much of the stuff I don't like. And this X-Men book, which was drawn by Ryan Stegman as opposed to Netho Diaz, who did the last issue, it was like a completely different kind of book. It was a heist, prison breakout action scene.
It is the start of a crossover with the Uncanny X-Men. I don't know if you're reading that book.
I am aware. It's funny is that the reveal at the end is like Rogue is there. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that must be exciting for people. And I looked at the cover. I was like, oh, I guess she's right there. It's not that big of a surprise.
Right,
she punches Scott in the face, but I didn't look at it, so it's fine. I don't even understand all the machinations of it because this is like in the post-Orcus world. Orcus?
I do have that point to make as well. Like, I'm so utterly baffled by whenever they talk about Hank's situation. Mm-hmm. And I read X-Men books all throughout the Krakoa era. I just didn't read all of them. And I feel like whatever evil shit happened to Hank, it was in a book I didn't read. So they keep alluding to it. I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about, but it's fine. I just don't know.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that because it's pretty clear. It's not like they're being vague about it. Like, he was a bad guy. I kind of knew that. And there was a bit in here where he met Jubilee and she was like, oh, you don't remember me because this version of you hasn't met me yet. And I was like, okay, so somebody went crazy. That person died. They resurrected of her earlier version. Something like that. Whatever. That's all I need to know.
Yeah, that was confusing too. I was like, wait, but she's been around since the 90s. But I guess they must have resurrected.
And I put it together.
Yeah.
So Whatever. If nothing else, for some reason, and I don't have to go through the whole adventure of it, Beast is what he's supposed to be. And I'm totally cool with that. Every time I read this book, I think of our partner, Ron. Mm-hmm. I think, God, I hope he's checking this out because this is the best Scott Summers book I've read in I don't know how long.
He's very cool in this book.
He is, and he's like the leader that everybody talks about. And it's not the young boy leader. It's the, I know what I'm doing. There's kind of a cool thing in here where like he's angry and they're like, you're not going to act well when you're angry. And he's like, doesn't matter. We're going to do the thing. It was just a cool superhero book. And they did cool superhero stuff. There's no part of this group of characters except maybe Quentin Quire, but he's still really kind of interesting that I don't like.
Right.
That I'm not. I like the makeup of the team. And like the ones I don't know about are not as confusing as they are intriguing.
Right. I like Psylocke. I like Magic. I like Temper. I never think to call her that. Mm-hmm. And the Magneto and Juggernaut or, whatever. Yeah. This is like an X-Men tradition to have villains in the team, which contrasts well with Uncanny X-Men, which is a book where I like Rogue, I like Nightcrawler, and I guess Wolverine's there, and I hate everyone else on the team. And so it leads my enjoyment down a rabbit hole. But this is a book I look forward to. I thought this was a really fun issue. Like, this was one of the books I really liked this week.
It was. I really liked the way that Stegman drew the scenes in the prison cafeteria with Hank. It was very claustrophobic and small, like they were in a little room and it was kind of close up. And Stegman is normally a person who's known for the big superhero spread, shot. And there's some of this later on, but that scene was really claustrophobic and I noticed it. I just went, I really like the shapes of how, he's doing his Beast. It looks different. The villain in here, the lady, I don't know where she is. She's,
it's funny because I've been waiting for this to happen because from what I can tell, this person took over the X-Mansion in Westchester and made it into a prison for mutants during the Orcus thing.
Which is a delightfully ridiculous X-Men idea.
Right, but also, like, they're just letting this happen? Like, they're all back now. And they've been back for a little while. You think the first order of business would be, let's go take our house back, Even if you're not going to live there, at least get the evil lady out. And so I'm glad they're finally dealing with it because I feel like the whole time this has been happening, I've been waiting for someone to be like, hey, shouldn't we go kick that mutant bigot out of our old house? I would want to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if it's always been like this, but the anti-mutant sort of way of speaking in this is just like, it's not coded racism. It's just horrible racism. And it kind of hits you the same way. Right. And it's interesting because these are not real characters, nor is, mutantism a real thing. But like she calls them muties. And I'm like, God, that's awful. I have a genuine reaction is she's actually using racial epithets there, which I guess makes the metaphor work pretty well. Unfortunately, this metaphor has only become more apt over time.
Yeah, so, Beast was abducted. That was the cliffhanger in the last issue. So here we see he had been abducted by the people behind the prison. Jubilee's there. And who's with Jubilee? Oh, the blonde girl from the Uncanny X-Men book. I forgot that happened in the last issue.
I wasn't sure who she was.
I think she's the horse riding.
Oh.
Girl from Uncanny X-Men. That book is bad. Yeah. But like I said, I love the scene where Scott's all pissed because he's like, he's one of my best friends. We grew up together. We're going to go get him. And so I was like, you're pretty mad. And she's like, I don't care. We're going to go get my friend. Like, I thought it was great.
It's justified. Yeah. I mean, I think if the argument I would make here or the supporting argument for it would be that I really, really like that last issue. And I really, really like this one, but almost for completely different reasons. Sure. It was a total... Not like a tonal shift, but it's like we moved to another part of the story and you gave me something else. In that issue, it was the right thing. And in this issue, it was the right thing. Yeah. It's fun because, to me, X-Men's kind of new. It's novel.
You're dipping your toes back in.
Well, I really do think that this is better for me than anything that X-Men has been for a long time.
Right.
Because they always go too deep. And I'm sure this will at some point. And one of the master molds or, I don't know, Nimrod, whatever it is will show up. And I'm like, I don't know what this is anymore. But right now, it's mutants on the ground. It's about racism and subjugation and friendship and power and good stuff.
That's good.
Look great.
Action Comics 1078 continues the weekly Silver Age adventure. And this is a long one. This is chapter 9. We're still going. Mark Waid, Clayton Henry with Michael Shelfer on art in the first main story. I'm enjoying it, though. I think it has the right tone of being just slightly ridiculous, but incredibly fun in that Silver Age sciencey way that Mark Waid's really good at. And, the family here is not too much Mr. Terrific's got a fun bit. The Flash is in a little bit. Like he's doing just a really good job of making this a fun adventure.
I've really liked in the sort of last bit of it, Kong and Superboy together. Is he Superboy in this?
It's Connor.
Is there two Superboys? Connor. All right, whatever.
They're both in it. I think they're both in it. Yeah, they're both in it. Connor's wearing the jacket because he had a jacket before.
I really liked them together, and I thought that it actually worked, whereas before there's too many characters. You know, I liked that we moved on from the Krypton thing really quickly. And then, you know, now we're here, and in the next step, we're seeing what happens at home, and the threat is really big. There's nothing amazing about this, but it is just serially enjoyable over and over again as it just keeps going in that Silver Age way, that old school comic book way.
Right.
It's fun.
So his whole plan is to, because there's a problem with the Phantom Zone, his whole plan is to basically dump all the prisoners out into a planet with the red sun so they don't have powers, so they can fix the problem with the Phantom Zone. And then the people in Kandor, who I guess have like a Zoom situation with the Fortress of Solitude, were like, no, you can't do that. But if you do, we're going to ban you from Kandor. And so you won't be allowed.
That's the only connection he has to Kryptonian culture, so it's very important to him. I thought that was a really nice sort of sacrifice that Clark has to make, because obviously he's going to do the right thing to save the most people.
Hell, they got a statue of him.
Yeah, and I thought that was nice. It was a little thing about like what it's actually like in there with him, because it's something that I'm sure stories have been told, but I haven't read a lot of them.
Right.
I've never quite understood Kandor, but I mean that in a good way.
Well, you know, Brainiac liked to steal cities, and he stole Kandor before it blew up.
I get it, but I sometimes forget like there's a bunch of people in there, and he can go in and hang out with them.
He's not really the last on the Krypton. There's a lot of Kryptonians around.
It's a good point. Why don't they want to come out and be like, hey, what if I could be the most powerful person?
I don't know if they can. I don't remember.
Yeah, there's got to be some reason.
The cliffhanger is that, of
James
course...
Robinson brought them all out.
That's true. Is that, of course, Superman, he's been without full power. He got his full power back by going to the sun, but then also all of the criminals of the Phantom Zone got out too, and now they've got full power because they're at the sun. So it's a big mess.
It's a nice page, by the way. The second to last page where he sees it, we look back again as it's closer and more in focus, and he's scared, and you don't see that with him very often.
Right. I mean, there's like 50 superpowered criminals flying right at him who are all strong as he is.
He knows that without the yellow sun, he's just some regular dweeb. It'd be like me. Like if I was super strong and doing the right thing, it'd be great. And then afterwards, it'd be like when all the football players got the yellow sun too, I'd just be back to the kid getting sand kicked in his face. Oh. I want to mention the backup story, which I know is divisive. I think I talked to Ryan. He's like, I don't get it. I know you probably don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you I like it that much, but I like something about it. I really like the art. Actually, I think it's a really good looking. It's a really good looking story. Yeah. I don't even think it's a bad story. I think that the structure is just a little weird because we don't really know. We're only starting to know now what the hell's been going on at all. And that works for the character not knowing. But I think maybe because they're so short, we need a little more hooks earlier on. I don't really care about its death or whatever, but there's a mystery here. Is why did Superman send me to do this thing? It seems that this person wants me to kill them, but Superman wouldn't send me to kill somebody. So she's got to solve that. I like that. That's a very good germ of a story. I don't know if the execution is great, but it's good enough. I read it. There's been lots of other backup stories that I'm like, I'm not reading that anymore. You know?
Right. Skylar Partridge is a terrific artist. I think it's a wonderfully drawn story, but I just think however many 9 chapters is too long to finally start to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, I understand.
I did want to briefly mention Absolute Superman number 2. It's still very introductory. This is very similar to Absolute Wonder Woman. We're still feeling we're still the first scene of this book.
Are these ongoings?
Well, they're ongoing until they're not.
I get it, but they're not 6 issues or whatever.
No, I think Scott Snyder said he had at least 24 planned, but it'll be ongoing until they decide to collide it with the regular DCU and whatever event they do. And it's not like Batman and Robin Year One where they said it's 12 issues or whatever.
Right. But it's not a cap. It's like we don't know. It's just like, as far as we know, it's ongoing like anything else.
How did you feel about the cape? What's made of sandstone or whatever? Magical Kryptonian stone. Dust.
I'm always torn on this stuff because part of me is like, that's not very Superman. And then the other part of me is like, it doesn't have to be Superman. I really am torn because if I'm the creator, I'm like, well, you know, do I make everything just an echo of what's happened before? Do I do a completely different thing? And so I'm rolling with it. I think is how I'm going. I'm like, all right, let's just ride this out. As long as the sort of spirit of the character is essentially the same, and we haven't got a chance to know him yet, Clark, but you know, we see it. As long as that's essentially Superman, then anything else you do, play around, have fun, go for it.
I think visually it's a little strange. Sometimes it's just so big.
Visually, it is a little Doctor Strange.
It's true. I think my problem with the book is I like Rafa Sandoval a lot. I know he wasn't supposed to be the original artist. I think it was Raphael Albuquerque? It was somebody like that. I wish there was a stronger artist on the book. And again, I like Rafa Sandoval. I don't know that he's necessarily working for me with this particular book.
I can see that.
It's not bad. It's just I feel like his Superman face is exactly the same every time. The expression's always the same. Mm-hmm. There's just some design elements I don't love. I don't know. It's not bad for sure, but I find myself, especially when you look at Batman and Wonder Woman, it's definitely the least interesting to look at of the three books.
So Batman and Wonder Woman, especially I'm going to lean towards Batman, is the threaded that needle of making it like Batman, but making it something new. Like by just a couple of small but significant design tweaks.
Right.
That weird logo is kind of a bit of genius. Like it shouldn't work, but it totally works. The squat body that he's got going on, the Dark Knight Returns sort of shape. And it works really well. Whereas, and here we go. I wasn't thinking it, but now that you've said it, I can see it. The Rafa Sandoval stuff, it kind of looks like one of the off-brand, like, what was the one that Jeff Johns did? Like Earth 1 Superman? You know?
Right, Superman Earth 1, yeah.
Yeah, like it's fine, but it doesn't actually look all that much like Superman, but it doesn't look original enough to make it stand out in the way that the other books do. This looks like a mid-tier Invaders book. It doesn't look special. But like this would be fine on a second-tier X-Men book. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of good things going for it, but it doesn't feel, this is tough for anybody, it doesn't feel special. And I think every time I read that Batman book, I say, man, I don't even know if I like the story or not, but it looks and feels special because of the way, for whatever reason, it's the art choice. And it's not like that thing you just said about his face is really throwing me off now, and I can never not see it, and I hate you because I wasn't not enjoying it that much. And there's a lot of good things here, but it's like really good basic superhero-y stuff.
Yeah, it's not bad. It just, like I said, it doesn't feel special. It doesn't feel like this is an event.
Mm-hmm. I will admit to a bit of trying to like it.
I think it's good.
I do too.
I haven't found my hook into it being like, this is awesome, like the other two books, I think.
Yeah, and I want to.
Yeah.
Tell you what, filling the cover with a bunch of Guardians ain't helping.
You mean the Peacemakers?
Yeah, whatever. The Peacemaker, like, they're based on the Guardian design, isn't it? Like, that's the thing? Whatever.
Which Guardian?
Like the old Guardian. Like
you mean the Jack Kirby Guardian? I don't know.
The one, he was like, a Metropolis Guardian.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd have to look it up.
Jim somebody? Doesn't matter.
No, the Guardian. I know who you're talking about.
I don't like that character. That character is getting jammed down my throat left and right. It's worse than Harley Quinn because at least I understand why people like Harley Quinn. I don't understand the character.
Yeah. Well, that's because it's solely because of Gunn.
I get it.
So Peacemaker was a Charlton character. He was the comedian, in Watchmen.
Yes.
But I don't think he's related to the Guardian or was inspired by the Guardian. I think they just have similar big helmets.
I guess that was it.
Yeah, the original version's helmet's much sillier, so they toned it down to look more like...
I think that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. It's fine. In Batgirl number 2, I actually had a reaction. Like, the thing that happened, I knew was going to happen, but when I turned the page and saw it happen, I still went, oh!
I didn't know until retrospectively. I was like, come on, Josh. Come on, you should know better. But that made it work.
So, Batgirl she's with her mom and Lady Shiva. Mm-hmm. Is it Lady Shiva? Why am I stupid? This is what happens in the last show of the year. I can't think of anything anymore.
Battling illness. It's Lady Shiva because you want to say Lady Deathstrike or like I kept thinking at the beginning that it was Talia. I was like, wait, is that? I was like, no, that's not her. It's Lady Shiva. She's the deadly assassin.
I was on a work call earlier and I couldn't think of the word apathy to save my life. I'm just tired. So they were fighting and then they ended up going to this restaurant where Cassandra hangs out. Cassandra? Wow, why did I say it like that? Cassandra.
Hey.
Cassandra. She's been hanging out with this family. The old woman, the grandmother, basically feeds her. And she's teaching the grandsons kung fu, karate. The grandmother's full of wisdom. Mm-hmm. She's great. She's, awesome. You want to hang out with this woman. So I was like, oh, she's definitely going to die. And so then when the blue flower ninjas show up and there's a giant fight in the kitchen of this restaurant, I was like, she's definitely going to die. And then when I turned the page and the guy hits her so hard that she goes horizontal, I really went, oh.
Yeah.
It's a choice. It's not just like she got stabbed or an arrow. Like, he hit her so hard she flipped. This is an old lady.
Well, she did have 2 swords.
Sure, but still.
Yeah.
It made me sad because she was awesome. And then they made a choice to make the violence very visceral to her. And I thought that was interesting.
What's interesting is that Cassie has been a supporting character for such a long time that we really haven't focused that much on her own story in a bit. And so her mother comes back and you kind of have to be like, all right, well, what happened with this? And you kind of fill in the blanks because you don't really know these characters all that well. Basically, what I'm getting at is you can imply the tension with the mother and sort of communicate it really fast, and you can make that real drama that sells. And what they did here, whoever this Tate Brumble.
We're so close on so many things today.
Tate Brumble, who lived in upstate New York in the 1750s.
Brumbleville.
Is known for his horsemanship.
Yeah.
By introducing this other character and very quickly like letting you know that Cassie has another portion of her life that we don't know about, they did a pretty good job of selling that. So when the bad thing happens, it has the impact of her changing what she would have done, her taking it personally, her taking the leap to, follow her mother, the conversation with her mother, whether you believe Lady Shiva would actually change after having a conversation with her later or not. It works. They're broad strokes, but it was effective. It shouldn't have been. It was almost could have been a little paint by the numbers. It was done really well. Do you remember, I'm changing my subject very slightly.
Okay.
You read Neil Stephenson's Zodiac, right?
Yep. Well, a long time ago, though.
Right. No, but in that book, which I just read, in that book, the main character has like a really close relationship with these Vietnamese people who run a restaurant. And they took him in and he keeps going back there over. And like having just read it, I was like, is this the same restaurant in Boston? Same kind of thing, like these salt of the earth, wonderful people, It made me think of it, but I kind of, I guess I kind of had an existing good feeling for this particular setup, which probably helped a little bit.
This was like a fine issue. This was sort of exemplary of the week in which like this was a good issue. Was it a 5-star issue? No. Would I have made it my pick of the week ever? No, but I enjoyed it and it got a reaction out of me. It was probably the better scale of things this week. It was like the top tier.
No, it was. I considered it.
Yeah.
Look at her on the cover. Look at like the cover's okay with the thing in the back, but like look at her image, the way they drew her jumping. Like that's beautiful drawing.
This is a solid book. I hope it's not revealed to be like 6 issues or whatever. Like I'm hoping we get to dig into what we're doing, whatever we're doing.
It's really good looking.
Yeah.
Just Takeshi Miyazawa's not.
Yeah. Takeshi Miyazawa's terrific.
Do you remember the last time we talked about Avengers and you're like, man, this isn't really anything happening. It's just a bunch of people talking to each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, it just happened again.
Well, you know what, though? This was great.
I know it's the baseball issue, and you're going to like the baseball issue. Loved it. But at the end of it, I was like, nothing happened again. They're all talking about being heroes. There's like 3 issues in a row.
I know. I would have made it my pick of the week, and I would have been a hypocrite. But I just really enjoyed the conversation. This is Avengers 787 or 21, where...
That's absolutely fair.
The Avengers and the X-Men hang out and talk, and they play baseball. Not even softball, it's good old country hardball. And I thought it was good. I thought it was interesting, like, why are you guys here? We're here because we know some shit's about to go down and we need to count on you guys to work with us and be our allies and not our enemies. And they're like, well, what if shit goes down for us? And they're like, I just thought there was a nice, now that Krakoa's over, not that I had an adversarial relationship back then, but they're like, let's reset this and say, we're all friends.
Yeah.
You always want the heroes to be friends. They were all hanging out. We all like each other again. And I thought it was fun.
I wanted the baseball part to go on longer. I was enjoying that part. And then they got to the part where they were just talking. And I was like, that other part was fun. Again, I thought of Ron. What's interesting is Jed MacKay wrote this and he wrote X-Men 8. And on the cover of each, Cyclops is getting punched in the face by a lady. Which does not happen in either of those books.
Yeah.
Carol and Scott do the Han and Lando thing at the beginning,
Right.
But I will say that the way that the reveal, the page turn into the parts where they're talking to each other and the faces and acting that they do, it's especially that second panel, I think is really nice.
I love Valerio Skeety. Probably Skeety.
You know what? I'm just going to...
I'm trying to remember that email we got chastised, and I'm trying to remember... I think it's probably Skeety.
We can't remember it. I abstain. I'm not going to say, if I have any doubt, I'm just going to spell it phonetically.
Valerio's great.
Yes.
I do want to mention several observations I had while reading this. So first, it's a very intimate hug between Carol and Scott. It's like hands around the small of the back. Like I was like, oh, they're letting Tony play baseball in his armor, which seems unfair. Then on page 12, you've got They're all hanging out and having like food at dinner, and except for Psylocke, who's sauntering in a robe post shower. I thought it was interesting. The cook Glob, I thought that his skin was translucent. Wasn't it just a dude with translucent skin? Isn't that what it is?
I don't know. I don't know either.
That's what I thought it was, but now he's drawn like he's a creature in this issue.
I'll tell you what was a problem, though.
What?
The big widescreen where somebody's coming down in a bathrobe. I guess that's
Psylocke. I just said, yeah.
Boy, we are just chilling. And he's saying, oh, it's Glob here who does almost all the farming. And I looked all over the page for Glob. And I was like, you can't do that. You cannot on a comic book page say this guy here and he's not there. Or at least it has to be the last thing that happens and you turn the page to it. But it's not. Right. I'm sorry.
And then I guess we're back to Scarlet Witch being Magneto's kid. I thought that was the thing they got rid of.
I had that thought as well.
She calls her father. I went, oh, we're doing this again, which I am 100% in favor of. Mm-hmm. I just thought we were doing the other thing. Again, totally thrilled by it. And I thought that was a fun conversation. And then, the whole Quentin Quire being an asshole, trying to bait the Vision about being an AI. I thought this was a great hangout issue. Reminiscent of the old JSA books where they have dinner together. And I liked Tony and Beast hanging out.
Just needed to be surrounded by other issues where something happened.
I agree 100%.
Uh-huh.
But this was the best of those issues we've done where nothing has happened.
I'm sorry, I'm going to let this go. I have too many. I'm very nitpicky on this, but Sam Wilson is drawn to be about 19 tops, maybe.
Yeah, that's been a problem the whole time.
And then he says the line, I'm the Black Captain America, Hank. The line is where I live. And I was like, I don't understand that. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I thought about it like for a while. And I was like, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what that means. The line is where I live. It can mean a lot of things, but it's not clear enough to be clever.
Right. Yeah. I thought this was good, though. Other than a couple of things, not even a couple, maybe just that was the only thing.
Those were fun things to pick on.
I tripped on that as well.
Like I really thought, I sat there. I want to say I gave it 2-3 minutes. I went back and I was like, what does that mean? Well, also like, it's very rare that they actually come out and say the Black Captain America.
Right.
They refer to it all the time. I've never seen anybody use the word now that I think about it. Like it's always, hinted at. They don't say the word, which is really interesting. And then, of course, my first thought was, is Judd McKay allowed to say this? I had that moment for a second. I was like, careful. I think he's Canadian, so it's fine.
He is Canadian.
There you go.
I liked it, though. I thought it was my pick of the week.
I didn't think
it was. It was my pick of the week. If I had to pick, that's what it would have been. I was a little surprised to see you add the Rocketeer Breaks Free #4 to the rundown, the final issue of this little miniseries. They've been doing a lot of these at IDW.
Do you read all these?
Oh, yeah, I read them all.
Yeah, I read them all. And it's one of those things where, I don't necessarily have a heck of a lot to talk about. It's not groundbreaking or anything. It is a ripping yarn of a certain age and a certain aesthetic.
It's very similar to the movie. They really like the mobsters who hate Nazis. Mm-hmm. That's like a very common thing in these Rocketeer stories that happens again here where they're fighting on Alcatraz. And the prisoners are let free by the Nazis thinking they'll cause havoc. Instead, they all attack the Nazis because they're Nazis. And then the mob shows up on the beaches to attack the Nazis. And everyone's attacking the Nazis.
You know what's funny is that I've been watching through Oz again because I have problems, clearly. And today, literally, there was a scene where Beecher comes in to talk to Pancamo. And Pancamo is the big Italian head of the mafia group there. Yep. And he's like, can you do something to the Nazis? And the mob guy goes, I hate Nazis. And I was saying, it's exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
And I thought for a second, I was like, why? At least in a prison setting.
I mean, the 40s, it makes sense.
No, not that I doubt it. I just wanted to understand it in that context. Anyway, I'll tell you what this is. This is Art Deco Nazi punching stories with a jetpack.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. And if that is the thing that you want, it's a sort of simple kind of genre story like that. They've been putting these out in little tiny arcs, and they're great. They're really fun.
They're vaguely connected. Yeah. They have the characters overlap and things, but you don't have to read them all in the order.
No, there's not a lot of character development. It's always like, will Cliff be better? No, he's going to be exactly the same next time, and that's what you're there for. It's that serialized adventure. It's great.
The only difference is that I want to call her Betty Page, but not Betty Page. She's more into the adventures now. Like she's less mad at him, more.
I think Betty. That's a better move because, she is Betty. But the other story, she was like, Cliff, don't. You're just like, why are you being like this? Having her get in a fight with the blonde Nazi later, that's great. That's way better than her being the wet blanket girlfriend. Yeah. I actually really like this little sort of family dynamic they had going that I don't fully understand in San Francisco. Anyway, this is the end of this arc. There's been a couple in a row, and I don't necessarily have a lot to talk about with it, but I did want to make sure it was known about and say I'm enjoying it. I'm glad that you're still reading it.
Yeah, for sure.
Good looking, too.
Yeah, Staz Johnson on art.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Good stuff. I love holiday comic. Marvel and DC always put them out this time of year. Sadly, the last few years, DCs have been pretty mediocre because, and I hate saying this, but it's true, they've been using it as a showcase for like new talent. And so you never know any of the names. You usually never see them in names again, and it's usually completely forgettable. Both Marvel and DC put their books out this week. In the DC book, there was one story by Marv Wolfman and Paul Pelletier and one story drawn by Francisco Francavilla. And then the rest were all new names. And every story but one were completely forgettable. It's just the way it is when you're a new talent. Marvel, on the other hand, with Marvel Holiday Tales to Astonish, great title, had 3 stories. One by Jerry Duggan and Phil Noto, one by Daniel Kibblesmith and Pat Olive, and one by Gene Lewin Yang and Dylan Burnett. Don't know who Dylan Burnett is, but all the rest of the names are, names I know.
Just one certified genius in there.
This was a really fun issue. It really was. If you're looking for the kind of stories you get from the other point is the DC book was called DC Batman Smells Robin Laid an Egg #1. Guess who does not appear in that book at all? Batman or Robin. So this book was fun. The first was a Fantastic Four story about a rogue Doombot and a Fantastic Four reprogramming him because some hackers turned him into a thief who's stealing presents like the Grinch, and so they reprogrammed him to bring them all back. That's what you get in these books. The second story, which was really fun, was Daniel Kibblesmith doing an Uncanny X-Men story that takes place like in the 70s with that team. Like the Kitty Pryde has just joined the team.
Nice.
It's her first Hanukkah on the team, and it's just her adventures over the 8 nights. And it weaves in and out of the actual books at the time. Like, I thought it was really fun, despite the fact that he had a character who used the phrase Nepo Baby in what would have been the 70s or whatever it was. But other than that, I thought it was a really fun story. I really liked the story. Then the Gene Lewin Yang did a Peter Parker, Miles Morales adventure, which was great. It actually kind of tied into that Spider-Man book. I don't know if you're still reading or not, but Miles has big plans for New Year's Eve with his girlfriend, and she gets sick, so he ends up running into the coffee shop guy from that book. Coffee shop guy takes no party, but he's Spider-Man. He's got to bail on it to do Spider-Man stuff, and the coffee shop guy gets mad and doesn't want to be friends anymore. That doesn't sound fun, but it actually was fun. It was very heartwarming because Peter's like, this is the life. It sucks, but I'll always be your friend. And Miles cried at the end, and it was very nice.
I just listened to everything you said, and I took in maybe 15% of it.
That's fine.
Like, it really got it. You're like, I don't know if you're reading this book. I was like, I don't even know what book you're talking about.
It's a Spectacular Spider-Man book. That's Peter Parker and Miles Morales teaming up.
Nah.
We used to talk about it.
Maybe I talked about the first one, but I completely forgot it existed, and I barely remember what you're talking about when you bring it up.
Anyway, if you like holiday comics, Marvel Holiday Tales to Astonish definitely won the battle this year. It was really fun. If you're an X-Men fan, it's totally worth checking out for that middle X-Men story. If you're like a Kitty Pryde joins the X-Men era fan of the X-Men.
I still think of that a little bit as new.
Kitty Pryde?
Yeah, like, because I was like, oh yeah, she joined later. She's a newer X-Men.
Sure.
But I was like, that's 45 years ago, dude.
Kitty Pryde joined the X-Men in X-Men 129, which was...
And you could imagine that Jubilee joining is like, that
1980.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a long time ago.
All I know is that Logan was buying a penthouse. That's all I know.
Jubilee joined in Uncanny X-Men 244. That was
my first X-Men comic.
Right. That was in the 90s. That was 89.
It just happens that is the first issue of X-Men I ever bought.
And you sold it to buy a house.
I still have it. It's downstairs. It's probably in a bag and a board.
So those are the books we want to talk about. But at patreon.com/iFanboy, the patrons, every week they get to vote to add a book to the rundown. It's their solemn duty. They take it mostly seriously. And this week, we actually ended up in a tie. It hasn't happened in a while. And normally, what happens in a tie is we flip a coin. But this time we decided, you know what? It's the last show of the year. We'll do them both. We will honor both choices. And the first choice was the Batman and Scooby-Doo Adventures, number 12. I don't know if you ever talked about it. Were you a Scooby-Doo kid?
I mean, it was a staple. I wouldn't tell you I loved it, but it was always there. Like, I watched it. I think, and you're going to relate to this.
Does it make you laugh?
No, but in that time, I didn't really even think of cartoons like that as trying to be. It was comforting. It was what it was. I think it's funnier now than I did then. Yeah. I mean, I guess. I don't know. Here's what I know, and you're going to relate. Batman would show up sometimes in the credits, and what I thought was maybe Batman will be in this one.
Yes.
And I think I always watched it just in case Batman shows up.
He was in like one episode and they put him in the credits. So they were like, is this a Batman episode? Oh.
Nope. I mean, I gave it a shot.
Another theme park.
I want you people who are even just a little bit younger to understand that there was two things that young men of that era looked for. And one was female nudity and the other was superhero content.
Well, because you couldn't find either one. Now it's all over the place.
Exactly. But you don't they showed Spider-Man's Amazing Friends at like 5 a.m. or something like that, on Saturday mornings. And I kept getting up, because I just want, and it feels like there was always the same 3 episodes, but
I was just waiting for that X-Men episode.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Just to see more characters.
Speaking of nudity, there were several scenes in this book where I was like, this is about to turn into an adult movie, isn't it? It's like me and Daphne will go over here in this dark room.
She's really into costumes and getting dressed up.
Yeah.
I was like, is that an innuendo? This is your standard Scooby-Doo story. There's
100%.
Mr. Ink have been called in because there's a ghost haunting the old theater that's closing down in Park Row in Gotham City near the clinic that
Leslie Tompkins.
Man, do not be sick for a week and try to remember names. Dr. Leslie Tompkins' clinic is right there. They've been called in because the ghost is haunting them, and the ghost is actually the Phantasm from the Mask of the Phantasm cartoon movie. And so they go in, and Batman shows up, and they discover the ghost rather quickly, and they solve it, and they pull the mask off, and you meddling kids. It's very fast.
It is.
But I enjoyed it.
I did enjoy it. Yeah. Because it was exactly what you would want it to be.
Right. I actually thought about you while reading it. I was like, Josh is just going to say this is exactly what Scooby-Doo should be. And it's like doing what it should be doing.
If you're not able to do...
They're not subverting the tropes. This is a Scooby-Doo book.
If you're not doing Mark Russell's Flintstones,
right,
you probably can't do it. So don't try. And so if I'm going to read one of these, it was. I guess this was the Batman episode I was waiting for forever. So maybe that was part of it. I think it's funny though, because like, I don't want to brag, but I figured it out pretty quick.
You mean it was one of the two people we met besides Batman and Mr. Ink and Leslie Tompkins? Yeah.
I thought it was really funny that they tried to set up Leslie Tompkins as one of the possible bads. I was like, well, that's not going to happen. And then the first thing I thought was, just ask Bruce. So there's a guy and he's trying to sell his theater and Dr. Tompkins wants to buy it, but her offer's too low, but she's going to do something good with it. And he wants to hold out for more money. And they almost try to make him sound like a jerk for that. And they were like, well, you're trying to sell it to have the most money during your retirement. And I was like, that's what you should do. That is exactly.
He probably hasn't made much money.
No, he looks like he was an English professor and, he doesn't have much, but like, it was like they couldn't quite decide if they wanted to make him a bad guy or not.
Right.
I mean, none of this in a bad way. The art was fantastic.
Yeah. This is Jay Torres and Dario Brazuca, a story of art and colors by Franco Rizek. We're not doing this right. The wheels have fallen off the trolley on the last episode. Franco Risco on colors and Seda Timofonte on letters.
There's a page where Batman jumps in. Yep. It's like, no, it's Batman. He comes out for the ceiling. And I was like, that leg is bad. Like, there's a weird foreshortening thing.
The knee, the foreshortening.
Yeah, it's terrible. You're getting one chance to do in this Scooby-Doo book, your Batman coming in, and that's what, like, he looked fine in the rest of it, and the cartoon characters looked perfect, because Italians are really good at that for some reason.
Yeah, but you're right. There's the scene where they break off into pairs, and Batman gets Velma. Of course, Shaggy and Scooby are off, so that means Fred and Daphne are together. I always loved Daphne as a kid.
Sure.
Short skirt, long legs.
And yet I really like Velma as an adult, so I don't know.
But she's like, normally I'm really into costuming. And I was like, wait a minute, what?
They went into the dark room together. And I'll be honest, Velma was a little into Batman. He's like, come on. And he grabs her and they go up into the air. And I was like, but then, they got to work together. I was like, oh, she's the smart one. And it's like, technically they shouldn't be together. They should have split up. So you have the two smart people in two different places. Whatever. It's fine. But
they solved the crime.
Right. And Shaggy and Scooby are up to their old tricks. They just want snacks.
And they want to get out of there. The first sign of trouble, they're like, we're out.
That's just funny.
It's funny.
There's no way around it.
There was a line that made me laugh. I'm looking for it, and I can't find it. But there was a Shaggy line that made me laugh out loud.
At one point, they're looking for snacks in the lobby, and there isn't any. And he goes, let's see if we can find some unpopped popcorn. I was like, oof, that's the bottom of the bowl, buddy. And I've been there.
Maybe it'll repop. This is fine. I've read other one of these, because this is a whole series. And so I've read maybe one or two of these before. This is exactly what they are. They're solidly done Scooby-Doo stories. This is like perfect for a little kid who likes Scooby-Doo and Batman.
Which would lead me to be like, do those still exist?
They must be somewhere.
I know. I do. I was really like, who is this for? Like, I'm going to pop in. I'm going to read
Generation
this.
X or elder millennial parents who watch Scooby-Doo who are forcing it on them because they don't get to watch it now.
That's exactly it. You'll like this, and they won't.
Does Scooby-Doo even air on TV anymore?
Probably, but kids aren't watching it.
I used to be able to sing that song word for word.
I'm sure I could. Where are you? Need some help from you now. If Scooby-Doo,
we're going to get a ding on YouTube for this.
If you find a mystery, you're going to have a...
Let's rate this book.
Don't talk back. Sorry.
Rate the Batman and Scooby-Doo Mysteries number 12 ratings. It's hard.
I'm gonna rate my experience.
Okay.
I wouldn't have read this, obviously.
Yeah, we'll get to that question in a minute.
I know, but what I'm saying is it has something to do with it. And as I read it, I had a little bit of like, all right, here we go. And I was like, it wasn't bad. I enjoyed myself reading it. So 3.
That's fair. I think 3. It's not a bad comic whatsoever, and it's enjoyable. And in the way that Josh likes to review things, it was exactly what it should be. Whatever it set out to be, this is what it was.
We've read books like this before that are bad.
Yeah.
Do you know Oni is doing all those cartoon books? They did the Sectors. I read the first issue of the Sectors. It was bad. You know what I mean? Like, it was bad. And this may have a nostalgia component or something like that.
Bad.
But
not bad at all.
No.
Were you going to read it if it wasn't for the pick? I was not going to read this. I had no plans to read this. Will you continue reading this book?
No.
But I'm not mad about it.
So is Batman in every issue?
Yeah, it's Batman and Scooby-Doo Mysteries. That's the title of the series.
He just shows up out of the shadows during the...
I've read like one other one. I think it might have been the Patron Pick another time, or it was just a cover that looked interesting. I definitely read one more of these. Mm-hmm. This is like the 3rd volume. Yeah. I guess someone's buying them because of 3 volumes of it.
I mean, yeah, the Scooby-Doo book's been published like
Scooby-Doo's keeping the lights on at DC. No one talks about it, but it's a dirty secret. Mm-hmm. Let's jump over to the second book, which is also out of Gotham City. Two-Face #1 from DC Comics, written by Christian Ward, drawn by Fabio Veras, colors by Ivan Placencia. In real time, my brain is melting.
Could be Ivan.
But I didn't say Ivan. I said Ivan.
Well, even you get it right.
And then letters by Hassan Otsmane Alao. Two-Face. So...
I'm going to ask you a question. I know that you like Batman. I know that you like Batman's Rogues Gallery. Do you like Two-Face? I love Two-Face, but I'm generally not into reading villain books, like where the villain is a protagonist, generally. Are there certain villains? Like, I get it. Like, I don't think you like the villains books about Batman or Flash's Rogues Gallery, but because I know that we both very much enjoy reading Doom books. And right, Doom is a sort of exception because it's such a... Doom and Kang are so singular characters. They're so bombastic and fun to read, whereas... I don't want to read a Harley Quinn book. I don't want to read a Poison Ivy book. I didn't read that Joker book. I only really read Penguin because Tom King wrote it. Mm-hmm. I don't either. I think that for whatever reason, these DC villains don't lend themselves to stories that are very fun. Doom and Kang are fun. They're over the top. That's why they're fun to read. And so everybody who does, I'm going to make a sweeping pronouncement. Pretty much everybody who does a DC villain solo story is trying to do that episode of Batman with Mr. Freeze. Right. Yeah. They're trying to do the sad, poignant story that gets to the heart of the person. Right. It's usually not that fun. It's trying to be poignant, or it's kind of dark and violent and like, why am I reading about this person? That said, I don't really like Two-Face that much. Like, I don't mind him when he shows up in a comic or whatever. But no part of me is interested in reading a Two-Face story. Only partially too because it's just like in what I've read, I feel like they have plumbed that depth pretty much as possible. Mm-hmm. And I think the character is a hell of a lot more fun when you don't. He's got two things. It's almost all villains are more fun when you don't plumb too far. Right. The setup here is that they've established an underground court of law for villains in which internecine disputes are taken care of in this court. The White Church. And Two-Face is the prosecutor in this court. This court seems to have no rules. May I interject real quick? Terrible. Terrible what? Just this as the setup for the story, I was out. Because it doesn't hold water at all. And I know that you have to suspend disbelief, and if I was entertained enough, I would have been. But it's much more fun, The Bar with No Name, or, what. But it feels like there's been a lot of stories. This is just what Chip Zdarsky detective book we just read, where he's the guy and all the criminals follow his rules. We've read it for a long... Newburn. Oh, Newburn, yeah. Newburn. Sort of that same idea. And again, I have seen this done We've seen it like in the gang war stuff that happened in Marvel, where like they all sit around a table and they try to, and they fight, and whatever. But this, I don't know.
I mean, there's always been councils and commissions. The mob did this.
Mm-hmm. It should have been sillier. This would have been fun if it was silly. It wasn't silly, so it wasn't fun. This scene, this part.
The case is about Mr. Zaz. There's nothing silly about him.
Yeah, no, he's a great villain. I don't want to know anything else about him, but I certainly don't want a mini on him.
Didn't Mr. Zaz's whole thing was that he would kill people, then set them up to look like they were still alive?
I don't know.
I feel like that's been forgotten about his character.
There were liberties taken in this, which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Not even just here. I think they just forgotten the idea that he used to kill people, then set them up so you thought they were still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the reveal of them not being alive was part of the terror. But that's sort of gone out the window, I think, with his character. But he's a great villain. I just didn't find anything really compelling about this. The art was fine.
There's bits where I thought the art looked really nice, and there were bits where I was like, yeah, it's not working.
Yeah, I don't know. This didn't compel me all that much.
Here's the idea, is that Harvey gets to play lawyer again.
Right.
And I was like, I get it, but I don't care. And then the next part was that what we find out is that Harvey is actually two people battling inside of himself, like the Hulk. And he's actually found a way to hide the other one away in a mirror or something. And he's young, and I hate that with the Hulk.
Yeah.
Unless somebody's really good, you can do it really good or whatever, but like the constant battle within your own head that nobody else is experiencing, so we're just watching a fever dream. And then this girl character who's supposed to be some street hustler and don't look like it at all.
Yeah.
At all. I was like, I don't buy this. I didn't read this and think it was aggressively bad.
Whose normie niece got let in here? Also, he's cheating. He's double-sided coin isn't double-sided. It's both sides are scarred. But then I was like, wait, is he also the judge then? This court has no understandable rules. Because there is a judge, but he's also flipping his coin to decide guilt or innocence. And it's just his court. Why isn't he the judge? I don't know. It didn't make sense. I know I'm looking for sense in a underground supervillain criminal courtroom. But if you're going to set up a thing, you got to at least have a scaffolding in which to hang the story on.
If it had been fun, if I had been interested in any part of it, I can let all of it go.
Sure. That's always the case.
I just was like, I'm reading this. It wasn't awful. Maybe somebody really likes this, but I didn't. Not even because it was awful. I just couldn't be bothered to care.
Ratings.
2.
2.5. Would you have read it otherwise?
No, I looked at it and I decided not to.
No, I was not going to. Are you sticking with it?
Lord, no.
No, I'm not either. I didn't enjoy it. Patreon.com/iFanboy is where every patron, everybody who gives at any level can vote to add a book to the rundown. And we thank them all who do so. With all the people who voted this year, thank you very much. It's always more fun the more patrons who vote to add the book. So thank you very much. Speaking of Patreon, that's how people support the show directly. This is our last Pick of the Week show of the year. We've been saying this on almost every episode. This is a listener-supported enterprise, as most media is now, unless you've got a big media company behind you or you're a giant celebrity. Everyone else is listener-supported. We understand that. There's a lot of shows people listen to. You could be supporting anybody. If you choose to support us, we thank you very much. The show would not be able to pay the bills. Quite frankly, would not be able to exist without your support. And so anyone who supported us throughout the years, we understand times can be tough. And if you can't do it right now, or you've had to end your support, we also understand that. But we thank everyone who's taken the time and their own hard-earned money to support our shows that we put out there to entertain you and make your comic book life more entertaining and fun and enriching. So thank you to everyone who supported us. And thanks to all the patrons. Support the show, become part of a great community on Discord and Facebook, and you can join the monthly Patron Hangout, in which me and Josh and our old pal Ron and sometimes other special guests will hang out and talk nonsense for an hour or so, sometimes 3 hours on a weekend. And we have a good time doing it. It's fun. Hey, there's a discount if you sign up for 1 year at a time. If you can be a monthly member, but if you want to say, hey, listen, I got some money, I want to sign up for a full 12 months, you get a discount. You can look into that on patreon.com/iFanboy. Also, you can give or receive gift memberships. That's right. It's the time of giving. Give your 3 cousins a patron membership. They'll be so confused and it'll be hilarious. Or if you want one and you don't think you can swing it, put it on your holiday wish list. Say, hey guys, go to patreon.com/iFanboy/gift. You can sign me up for a membership. I would really appreciate it. And then you can come to the Hangouts.
That's the scenario that makes sense.
That's one that makes the most sense. But I just feel like if you have some extra money and you've got some cousins you don't like, even second cousins.
So why don't you just troll them and give us their gift?
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's just an idea. But if you want to be a patron, but you can't swing it, totally put patreon.com/iFanboy/gift on your wish list and tell people, hey, sign me up, and I would love it. That way you can hang out on the Discord. You can hang out on the monthly Hangout. You can also vote for the Patron Pick. All those things are fun. iFanboy.threadless.com. That's our merchandise store. All kinds of merchandise going in and out the back door you don't even want to know about. We have 20 designs. That's right.
Shrimp and lobsters were best.
We had 13 for a long time. Eventually, we're going to burn this place down. 20 designs on T-shirts and more. We're really proud of them. After some initial bumpiness in the design of the new ones, we got them fixed. They look great. Check them out.
They're cool.
And also, we got more designs on the way. That's right. We're thinking about some more. I'm sure there'll be a Christmas sale on Threadless. They always do holiday sales, so check it out there. But if you want a comic book T-shirt that just means something to you, that maybe you know the meaning of, but no one else who sees it will know, that's where you go, iFanboy.threadless.com.
And you can wear a sweatshirt over it if you don't want to have to explain it to normie nieces.
What is the weapon of the enemy? Listen, man, I don't got time for this. iFanboy.com/support is our PayPal tip jar. Again, if you're an eccentric billionaire, even a centimillionaire, and you feel like throwing us some cash for the holidays because we've been making your comic book life more fun, and you wanted to drop $100 to $200 million in there, we'll figure it out. It'll be a headache, I'm sure, but we'll figure it out.
I know that we talk about the billionaires, millionaires, things like that. We're not against six figures.
No. If you're just a regular millionaire and you want to drop in six figures, that's fine too.
Okay, say like you're an older single guy, right? You're pulling in like $900K.
Right.
You could lose some of that. And listen,
how
people
much
need
more
help.
do you need in your retirement account?
You know, you're fine. You're living off the interest, and you're living well.
Yeah.
Cleaning ladies coming by, you know.
Right. Always a steak in the fridge.
Yep.
Think about iFanboy.com/support. Have a couple of whiskeys and do something fun. Make bad choices. iFanboy.com/Amazon. This is our shopping link. It's the holiday time. I just bought some stuff on Amazon for some people. Use the link. It helps us out. It doesn't hurt you at all. We do appreciate that, everyone who uses it. And we definitely see an uptick in November and December in terms of purchases through the link. And that helps us out tremendously. And we do thank you very much for doing so, for thinking about us. Finally, bookshop.org is our partner for local bookstores. If you're buying books this holiday season, no better place to do it. It'll warm your heart to help a local bookstore out. This is the time of year where a lot of the stores make their bones. They make their nuts.
Bones and nuts. Let's talk economics, kids. You got your bones, you got your nuts.
What else is there? That's all you need to know. Check it out at bookshop.org. There'll be links on our website in the appropriate places, which usually means the Booksplode posts where we have links to buy those books. And we thank you very much.
It's almost like you have no business training at all.
Let's move on. Speaking of patrons, if you're a patron at the $5 or higher level, you get a superpower live on the show. And that power is given out right now.
Lance C. Ownings. I was really excited about saying Lance C. Ownings, which I'm trying to find out if there's some code in there, but I can't quite get to it. He's always clean.
Always clean.
He cannot be physically dirtied.
His body or his clothes or his aura?
The body. The body cannot be. He doesn't get sticky hands. He can move around tree branches at will.
He could deal with a Christmas tree without getting all sappy. Oh man.
Cooking is a joy and a delight.
So if I had a bucket of mud and I threw it on Lance C. Ownings, only his clothes would get dirty.
Yeah, but it's sliding right off of him.
Right. His face is clean as a whistle.
Face, hair.
Are whistles really clean? What does that phrase mean?
It's something that you spit into all the time.
Right.
Might not be.
It's like the opposite.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so he's much cleaner than a whistle.
Super clean.
He's very
cleaner than a whistle, man.
Like you could be like, man, are you telling me you just worked the whole day? And he's like, yes, I am. I did. I worked the whole day. I was fixing engines.
Includes smells?
Smells good. Now, see, here's a question.
Yeah.
Can good smells stick to him?
Well, here's another question.
Is that possible?
Does he have a natural good-smelling musk, or does he still need deodorant?
I think he's going to have a natural good smell. He doesn't necessarily need deodorant because I think in a way that smell comes from bacteria crowding up in too much in areas of his body.
So
that doesn't
get the bacteria.
No.
So people love hugging Lance because they're like, oh, he smells so good.
Yeah, but it's natural too, though. It's not just like
natural musk.
Yeah.
It's a musk.
Well, musk really is maybe stronger, but I don't know what Lance smells like on his own. I just know that he's not getting dirtier.
I feel like it's like a piney smell. It's like a pine tree.
I bought this beard shampoo.
Yeah.
And it said it was a piney smell. Mm-hmm. And then half of the comments were like, this is a really good smell. And half of them like, you're nuts. It smells like kitchen floor wax. And I hate to report, it does smell like kitchen floor wax. It's terrible.
I have a peppermint scented beard shampoo. Don't know if it smells that way. I haven't smelled anything in 10 years. So who knows what it smells like. Thanks for being a patron, Lance.
That's so sad. Somebody should give you a patron power to get that back.
I need to see a doctor. Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks for being a patron. We appreciate it.
How are you going to know if there's a gas leak?
I don't. That's actually a big problem. I've had that happen a couple times where the burner was turned off.
I'm glad you're okay.
Which explains a lot of why I can't recall things on the show anymore.
Sure.
Let's dive into some stats before we move on to the emails. The end of the year stats, always a favorite segment. The picks of the week by the numbers, 2024. Let's roll through them. I might post these on the Patreon. I know we said that about the Patron Power Report. It never happened. It just slipped our mind. I'm going to try to post everything after this last show comes out. Anyway, here we go. Total of 49 picks of the week this year. That's sort of our standard number. It's been that way the last 9 years. Josh, you were the winner. You had 19 picks out of 49.
Always reliable like the mail.
I had 18. Ryan had 10. Both Jim Viscardi and Paul Montgomery guest hosted each and had 1 each.
Now, Ryan's supposed to do this show once a month, right? And you're saying he did 10.
He had 10.
Just send a note to Carol for me to check that out.
7 different publishers had picks of the week. Josh, which publisher do you guess had the most?
I'm going to say DC?
No, Marvel had a huge year. 20 picks out of 49. DC had 13. Image had 11. Huh. Yeah, Marvel 20, DC 13, Image 11, Boom 2, AWA 1, Dark Horse 1, IDW 1. Josh, of your 19 picks, what was your number one publisher? And I'll tell you, it wasn't even close.
It's had to be Marvel then.
Marvel, you had 12 out of 19 picks of the week. You had 2 DC, 1 ADW, 1 Boom, 1 Dark Horse, 1 IDW, 1 Image.
That's
only
crazy.
1 Image pick. Yeah. I had 4 different publishers, 6 from DC, 6 from Image, 5 from Marvel. Almost an even spread. 1 from Boom.
I thought I was the more diverse reader, and no.
You're turning to a Marvel zombie in your old age. Ryan had 3 companies, 5 DC picks, 3 Marvel picks, 2 Image picks. Both Jim Viscardi and Paul each picked an Image book 1 time, which doesn't count because Jim ended up working at Image.
He didn't work there at the time.
I know, I'm saying.
Although it's possible it was in the offing.
Writers. We had 9 writers receive multiple picks this year.
Mark Waid.
Chip Zdarsky and Zeb Wells each had 4. Jed McKay, Kelly Thompson, Ryan North had 3. Jason Aaron, Jonathan Hickman, Joshua Williamson, and Stephanie Phillips had 2. There were 32 writers who each got picked 1. I'm not going to go through all the names, but there's a lot of them.
So I was wrong about that too. I thought definitely Mark Waid.
Mark Waid, no. Mark Waid had 1 this year.
So the books that we talk about a lot do not necessarily correlate to the books that we pick a lot. Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, the one-time writers included Jeff Johns, Mark Waid, Tom King, Rick Remender, Rainbow Rowell.
Wait, you're telling me Tom King
had 1.
Got 1 pick of the week all year?
Yeah. Huh. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there's another spreadsheet that has the breakdown, but I don't have that in front of me.
That's fine.
Artists. 8 different artists received multiple picks of the week. Carlos Gomez and Daniel Cunha had 3 each. Alex Linz, Bruno Redondo, Keen Tormey, John Romita Jr., Marco Ferrari, Tom Riley each had 2. And then the 38 other artists received the pick of the week honors, but only 1 time. Finally, series. Not finally, there's more things. Series. 6 different series received multiple picks. Do you think you can name all 6?
Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's 1.
Fantastic Four.
That's 2.
Obviously X-Men.
3. Getting all the Marvel ones right, just like your Marvel Zombie.
Yeah, well, you know me. I just fucking love Marvel.
There's
so
one
much.
more Marvel book on the list.
She-Hulk?
Nope.
Okay, go ahead.
One more guess. I'll give you one more guess.
I can't.
It's a miniseries.
Oh, the Avengers one. Avengers Twilight? Twilight
Correct.
Avengers?
That's 4 out of 6. Did you have an Image book and a DC book?
What is the Image book? I got nothing.
Scarlet. And then Action Comics.
It's funny. I don't think of Scarlet as an Image book.
Right.
That's a G.I. Joe book. They happen to publish it, but I know what you're saying.
Amazing Spider-Man, 4 picks. Avengers Twilight, Fantastic Four, X-Men, 3 picks each. Action Comics and Scarlet, 2 picks each. And then there was 31 other series that received 1 pick of the week. 3 different Aliens books received pick of the week once this year.
Yes. So Black, White, and Red was only 1, or Black, White, Green, and Red was only 1.
Black, White, and Blood was 1.
And What If, and then
What If was 1.
Just one of the regular Alien
Alien
series.
versus Avengers.
Oh, that was pick, huh?
I think that was you.
That wasn't long ago. You said Ribic.
He said Ribic. And so then, if you go, well, before we get to the ending, 14 number 1 books this year, which I think is way down from the year before, but I got to look. Absolute Wonder Woman, Alien Black, White, and Blood, Alien vs. Avengers, Avengers Twilight, Batman First Night, Beware the Planet of the Apes, DC vs. Empires World War V, G.I. Joe, Plastic Man No More, The Question All Along the Watchtower, Red Before Black, Scarlet, Tin Can Society, Zatanna Bring Down the House, all were picks of the week, all number 1s. And there were 8 imprints that received picks of the week. 6 from Skybound, 4 from 20th Century Studios, 4 from Black Label, 2 from Giant Generator, 1 from Absolute Comics, 1 from Elseworlds, 1 from Ghost Machine, 1 from Ultimate Comics. So that means if you go by the numbers, purely by the numbers, the series of the year was The Amazing Spider-Man with 4 picks of the week. So the iFanboy series of the year by the numbers.
I'm not arguing with that.
Writer of the year by picks was a tie between Chip Zdarsky and Zeb Wells. Not surprising, Zeb Wells, 4 picks each. Chip Zdarsky got 3 from Avengers Twilight. And then Artist of the Year was a tie between Carlos Gomez and Daniel Cunha, who had 3 each. Daniel Cunha drew the Avengers Twilight books, and Carlos Gomez drew Fantastic Four. So there you go. Those are the picks week by the numbers. I'll try to post this to the Patreon page so people can check it out. Fun times.
It was a really good year.
It was diverse. It was diverse compared to other years.
But just for Marvel books that did the Marvel thing the way you want it.
Marvel was a strong year. Yeah. Oh, one more piece of stats. This is a different spreadsheet, but I've got it open. We talked about 421 books this year, which is the least amount since 2020, since they
really
didn't publish books. Yeah, in fact, this year's number was the first year doesn't count because we only did 54 books because we only had 9 shows. The second year, we did 308 books. We jumped up 436 by the third year. So if you count the third year as the starting point, it's like the third lowest number of books we talked about this year. Last year, we did 431.
I understand that, though.
The year before was 428. So we sort of settled into this 430 range, 420, 430.
Yes. Because I think that we were going so long on all these different things that when we wanted to make sure we picked things that we liked.
You and I have been talking longer about fewer books.
Yes.
For instance, if you go all the way back to the year 2011, the year of DC The New 52, we talked about 746 books that year. 746 books that year.
Was there 3 of us on the show?
Yes.
That's also a factor.
Also, we talked about all the New 52 books all the time. We averaged 8.5 books an episode this year. Not bad. Not a bad number.
No, it's good.
Again, that year we talked about 746 books. We averaged 15 books a show. Averaged.
Jeez.
That's a lot.
That's a show note disaster.
It was even crazier is the average show length then was 1 hour, 45 seconds.
Huh.
The show is 10 minutes longer. This year we averaged 1 hour, 11 minutes, 44 seconds. The show is 11 minutes longer. We're talking about half as many books. We talk longer about the books. It's just what's happened. The show's evolved over the years.
We're better at it. I like
fewer books. Fewer books to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, what's the time say? We threw the clock out the window. I don't know. So let's do an email, I guess. Or 2.
Let's just do the second one.
Okay. David C. from Springfield, Massachusetts. The Mitch Garrett's Talksplode was a great listen. Thank you both for keeping me company on my long commute today. After listening, I began to wonder if you folks have ever come across a creator who took your criticism personally and might have reached out to you either in person or via another means. Part of the reason I enjoy listening to your show is that, for the most part, you manage to keep things positive. I can imagine there might be a few people who don't share that viewpoint. P.S. I thought about this for the duration of the drive home today.
First of all, David, I just visited your fine city and went to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. I had a delightful lunch. It was very nice.
So is that where the Hall of Fame is, Springfield?
Yep. That is apparently where the game was invented.
Sure. Just like Cooperstown was where baseball was definitely not invented.
Right. Well, the baseball, there's a great deal of discussion about who actually did it. But as I understand it, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but there's different people calling that one. Anyway, so that was good. And I imagine your commute could be quite hellish. Now, I thought about this, and for a second, I thought, I don't have an answer, because the real fact is, A, I don't think that many pros listen anymore. And B, I don't know. I think we're relatively fair.
We've always tried to be fair when we're negative,
right?
Except for rare instances of not being fair.
And I've gotten feedback from people in the past that they had appreciated that. But I did think of this story, and I was like, well, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. But then I thought of this, and I thought, I can. The first time we met Gabriel Hardman, we were shooting the video show at New York Comic Con. And we were, I was like, you have a camera? Sure. And we talked about the books or whatever. And I said something about one of the books, and he goes, you didn't like it. And I was like, okay, didn't realize you were a person listening. And I'm on camera and have to do the thing. And I think it was Red Hulk or something like that. I don't remember what it was.
We've certainly heard from people. I'm not going to say names, but I definitely remember getting an email from an artist who was a pretty big deal when we started the show. The artist was a big deal when we started the show. He's less of a deal now, but he emailed us, not recently, but maybe in the last 10 years, complaining about something we said on the show. We had another writer who sort of half-jokingly confronted Ron at Comic-Con one year about something he had said on the show. Do you remember that? In the image booth?
Yeah, kind of, but not really.
He was half-joking, but also totally not joking. But it helps when we try to be fair and talk about the reasons why we think about things, except unless it's like The Century Fallen Sun or something like that. But, we try to be like, we didn't like this didn't work, and here's why. If something's really, 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 really bad, we just tend to not talk about it in the show. So it just makes it...
Unless patrons make us.
Yeah. So I'd say less than 10 times the entire time we're doing the show, we've heard from a creator complaining about something.
Probably not so much now, but there was definitely a point where I think that we were getting a lot of attention and pros were definitely listening. I know, a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And I know, for example, like Tom King doesn't listen to the show anymore. He's like, I can't hear you talk about my books. Like, so he's just out.
Can we talk about the one guy who told us about that? Can we talk about that? Should we say his name?
I don't care.
It's not a criticism. So at the old WonderCon, back when it was in San Francisco, Judd Winnick stopped us and said nice things. We've interviewed him many times. And
I'm quite friendly with Judd.
Yeah, we're friendly with him. This is a while back. This is, and he said, I don't know if people tell you enough, but we always appreciate that you guys are fair, even when you don't like something we do. And so that was sort of carried us through, like, we got to actually make sure we do that.
And I took that as such a compliment.
Huge compliment.
I mean, I think about it all the time when we talk about this stuff. But what I was going to say is that my takeaway from this is that I think that maybe they're not as thin-skinned as a large group. I'm sure there are people who are, as you would think.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I know, but like we haven't really run across it. And I think that we have been...
We could be way more successful on YouTube if we screamed about how terrible everything was all the time, because that seems to be what gets the clicks. But we don't do that. We try to be more nuanced.
It's true, by the way, because what was it? We would do the year-end stuff. I think Ron always wrote the worst of comics.
Yeah.
I could barely read it, but it was by far the most popular article.
Yeah, when we used to do our website articles, we would do a year-end pieces at the end of the year, and we'd get assigned a category: best writers of the year, best artists of the year, best books of the year, yada yada yada. Because we were trying to be positive, but then Ron would always do the worst of the year in comics, and that article got 5 to 10x the number of clicks than every other article we posted about the best of the year. Every time, without fail. The most clicks, the most comments, the most engagement. It's just the internet is designed to drive negative engagement. And if we were a super negative podcast, we'd probably be YouTube millionaires at this point. But just can't do it. Can't do it. Thanks for writing in, David.
Yeah.
Thanks for writing in.
There's good people out there. It hasn't happened that much. And I take that as respect for us, respect for them. Good to go.
Respect for comics. Thanks for writing in all this year. Contact at iFanboy.com.
It's not our platform.
Our Mediasplode emails. You can put Mediasplode in the subject line. As I said last week, now that the show has ended, we will take all the unread emails on the show, put them in a folder marked Bankruptcy 2024, and start afresh and start anew. So if you want to get your emails on the show going forward, you got to write them in, because anything that's still in the box has gone into a folder. So this is how we do it. We like to start fresh. So if you want to get your email on the next episode, you've got like 3 weeks to write us in, starting now. Plugs. This past month, we had our Booksplode show where we interviewed, we didn't interview the book, we reviewed it. Wow. Batman, The Dark Knight Strikes Again, we reviewed that. We had our year-end mailbag Mediasplode show, and Josh just did the aforementioned Talksplode interview with Mitch Gerrits. That happened all in the past month.
I know I always say this, but I really, really enjoyed my talk with Mitch, and I think that he did too, and I think that made for a very good show. So if you were like, oh, I don't usually listen to it or whatever, I think it's worth it.
This coming Thursday, crawling to the end here, December 12th, instead of this month having a Talksplode, we're going to have a bonus Booksplode for you. So look for that this coming week.
I will tell you what it is, so that if you want you to prepare. It's The Hidden Life of Trees, a graphic adaptation based on the book by Peter Holben. It's a German name. I don't know how I did. With the adaptation by Fred Bernard, put out by Greystone Books. It's basically a naturalist, more than naturist. I think naturalist. He wrote a whole prose book about how trees communicate with each other and the ecosystems in the forest, whatever. And this is a beautifully illustrated version of that book with some really crazy, interesting ideas. And you should check it out.
Josh will be joined by Paul Montgomery and Reinhaupt.
Yep. So science talk.
Some science talk, some art talk as we close out the year for that. And then finally, next week, in place of this show, will be the All Media Year-End Roundup, in which we spend several hours talking about the things we enjoyed this year from film, television, podcasts, music, comics. Oh, and books. Books and comics. I was just trying to picture the rundown in my head.
Comic books?
Comic books. And then we're going to go on our holiday break for 2 weeks, and we'll be back January 5th with Pick Week 958. But also, we didn't get to talk about this last week. Me and Josh and our old pal Ron made a guest appearance on Cradle to the Grave, a podcast to discuss The Crow, the original Crow from 1994. The Cradle to the Grave is a great podcast that talks about horror films. He wanted to have us on, so we talked about The Crow. I don't think he was expecting our reaction to The Crow that we got, but he got it. We had a lot of fun. He probably didn't talk a lot. We spent most of the time talking, as what happens when the three of us get together, but it was an incredibly fun time. And also, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it now. I made a guest appearance on Movie of the Year 1994, a podcast to talk about Swingers. It's a podcast series where they pick the top 12 movies as picked on Letterboxd, and they just try to figure out which one is the best from each year. Previously, I did 1984. I talked about Ghostbusters. This year, I talked about Swingers. I think Josh is going to make an appearance later on in that series.
It got postponed a bit.
But you'll make it.
Oh, I know, but it'll be a little
Anyway,
bit.
We'll have links to all those shows on the show notes for this episode. If you want to hear us talk about The Crow, if you want to hear me talk about Swingers, I also put a link for Ghostbusters. We should try to keep those links live at the bottom for our other appearances so people have them, know where they are. Because there's so many places all over the place. So there you go.
Yeah. You can find our library of over 1,400 shows at iFanboy.com, wherever podcasts are sold, bought, distributed, bartered, or otherwise.
Traded for sacks of sugar and grain.
Yeah, otherwise part of a larger economic trade
pickaxes
consortium. Yeah,
I like to think of us being in California in 1948, trading podcasts for mining equipment.
Consarn it. Follow us
Dynamite.
at iFanboy Comics on Instagram to find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out. I don't know what I started doing there. I started doing this.
You started doing
sometimes
Henry Hill.
For the best, sometimes for the that's Chicago. That's
you went to Chicago. Well, you shot past Henry into Chicago. Wow.
Yeah, went all the way out to the middle of the country there. You know, the beef pens. Sometimes the best of the weekend panels all over the world.
Did you say beef pens?
Yeah, they had cow pens. That was what they did. Like it was the cow.
I would expect
yard.
You say cow pens, not beef pens.
I don't know, but I mean, at the end of the day,
didn't they have pig farms too?
Probably. All the meat went to all the animals.
Yeah.
It was not good. There was a whole book about it.
Yeah. Did they build the city over those pens?
It's possible. I didn't read the book.
Oh, you did. Devil in the White City.
No, I didn't mean that one. The book about the Upton Sinclair.
Oh, no, I didn't read that one. I'm talking about Devil in the White City. They talked about the smell and the build over everything. Yeah.
That I read. That was a long time ago. One of the best
books
I've ever read. Nope.
Okay.
You can follow us individually, Cisco Patrick and Jay Flanagan on Instagram. That's it.
Subscribe to youtube.com/iFanboy. You'll find our old video shows there. You'll find this show we posted every week where we don't rant and rave. We talk as just sort of even keeled as possible. If you're listening to iFanboy on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you go to the podcast app, set iFanboy to auto download. Really helps us when you do that. And if you're listening on Pocket Casts, please give the show a rating. Somebody.
Ratings. Sorry.
You need to be subscribed and have downloaded a few episodes before you can rate it. Please take a few minutes. If you can't be a patron, if you can't buy a t-shirt, if you can't buy a book, please consider just leaving us a rating or a review. It really helps the algorithm. As we bow down to it and try to appease it, we need as many ratings as reviews as possible.
Ratings.
So thanks very much. If you're just listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we keep saying those two because those are, by stats, the most popular way people listen to the show. Please consider also leaving a review or a star rating. So thank you very much. I'll do that. And thank you very much for listening this year. We appreciate it. This is the final Pick of the Week show of the year. Thank you for everyone who's listened throughout the year. We'll be back next week with the All Media Year-End Roundup. And then the Pick of the Week will return in January, which will be our 20th year of doing this podcast and our 25th year of iFanboy.
Hey.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Hey, Connor.
Yep.
Was this a bad show?
I don't even know. That's the beauty of it. My brain can barely process words.
I wanted to say, like, hey, if you thought this was a bad show, let us know. And then I was like, I don't really want to know that. I want to be able to say it. I don't want you to say it.
I want people to enjoy it, whether it's good or bad.
I think that's what we should be going for.
That's our motto.
Yeah.
Let's put that on the crest.
Basically, we don't have to do well as long as you enjoy it. That's nice. That takes a lot of pressure off.
Thanks, everyone, for listening this year and anytime over the past 19. As we roll into our 20th year, I'm Connor.
I'm Josh. Dear God.